Hey guys, it's Omer from MMOs.com with another quick weekly news recap of all major MMO news and announcements for the week ending July 10th, 2017. This is episode number 103 of the recap, and the first bit of news this week is from Webzen regarding Mu Legend. We finally have an open beta time frame for Webzen's upcoming asymmetric MMORPG, and it's set to release sometime into open beta in September. It's a bit disappointing because we previously reported that it was aiming for a summer release into open beta here in the West, but it looks like we'll have to wait a little bit longer. Obviously, the delay gives devs more time to polish up the game, but it's disappointing because the game has launched open beta in South Korea since March of this year, so our English version is set to launch a full 6 months after the Korean one. Still though, I think it'll do fairly well because I played it and I actually had a lot of fun with it, so I think it'll do pretty well. Next up, a sad day for Red 5 Studios is Firefall. The game officially shut down this last week. Anyone who followed Firefall Saga shouldn't be too surprised as the game's been riddled with issues since launch, and the game's player base has been in a steady decline ever since it launched back in 2014. In addition, the game's demise was definitely right around the corner for a while, as there hasn't been any updates or news posted on the game's official website in over a year. Apparently though, the Firefall franchise itself will live on in the form of a mobile game, which will launch sometime in the near future, and apparently people who bought Firefall will get some kind of bonus in that mobile game whenever that does happen. For now though, rest in pepperoni, Firefall. Next, in some more upbeat news, Shroud the Avatar is holding their 4th free trial period. Anyone can download and log into the game for free until July 26th. And just like previous free trials, free users do have a bunch of restrictions, but can still experience what the game is all about. In addition, the game raised about $100,000 during a telethon on July 6th to celebrate Richard Garriott's birthday, the guy that made Portalarium, the company that makes Shroud the Avatar. On the equity crowdfunding front, the game raised about $181,000 so far on Seedvest, with about 28 days still left. I'm not crazy about the equity crowdfunding thing, but if anything, this last telethon shows us that they can still raise money pretty reliably. The game itself is also set to launch later this month, at least according to their Seedvest equity crowdfunding page, but we'll see what that launch entails. It might just be just another phase of their beta, because the game is still seems far from complete. Also in crowdfunded MMORPG news, Albion Online is set to launch on July 17th, and starting on the 17th there won't be any more wipes going forward. It's one of the first big crowdfunded games to actually launch, or rather right around the corner, which is definitely pretty exciting. Founders packs have also been discontinued, so if you didn't buy one yet, you won't be able to going forward, but I'm sure they'll be holding some other promotional sales in the future. I think I first played Albion well over a year ago, so I'm glad to see it finally making it to release, and ever since first playing it like over a year ago now, I've been looking forward to the launch. I didn't want to play too much in beta because of all the wipes going on, but going forward after the 17th, there won't be any more wipes. And I'll probably do a video after the launch as well. Should be fun. Next, I have a bit of odd news from China regarding Honor of Kings / Strike of Kings, the League of Legends-like mobile game from Tencent. The company placed limits on playtime for the game in China to anyone under the age of 18. Anyone 13 to 17 can only play 2 hours a day, while those under 13 can only access the game for 1 hour. These restrictions were introduced after a 17-year-old suffered a stroke after playing it non-stop for 40 hours, and a 13-year-old boy jumped off a building after being lectured by his father for spending too much time in the game. And as grim as this news is, it actually makes me want to play the game a bit more. You guys tell me if I'm just being an asshole, but I feel like if these people are this addicted to this game, there's clearly something here. It's actually the most popular game in the world, despite being only released in a handful of countries, mainly China. The game is actually available in English in Netherlands, Turkey, and UK right now, and should be launching in America probably sometime in September. I actually made a separate Netherlands Apple ID so I can play it on my iPhone, and I've been having a lot of fun. I think it's a pretty solid MOBA so far, and I'll probably do another video in the near future. And I totally can't be the only one that wants to play a game after reading an article about somebody like dying or getting a stroke for playing so much. If a game is that addictive, it must be good. Up next, Tera announces the Dragonsire's Revenge update, and with it comes the return of Herald. The Herald raid was the first 30-man raid in the game, and it's actually returning now as a 20-man raid with new rewards and challenges. It also has players facing off against their old friend Vergus. The update itself launches on the 11th, probably should have said that a bit earlier, and with it also comes 2 other hard dungeons, as well as the introduction of a new dual option gear system. Tera remains one of the more popular free-to-play MMORPGs on Steam, averaging about 2,200 or so players over the last 3 months online at any given time, which is still pretty solid. If you never played it, I think it's well worth checking out. Next up, we have a bit of news from Blizzard Entertainment regarding Hearthstone. They announced a brand new expansion called Knights of the Frozen Throne, which obviously takes place in the good old frigid north of Northrend. It adds 135 new cards to the game, as well as new hero cards that transform players into Death Knights, which is actually a new mechanic. It also adds a new lifesteal keyword, which does exactly what you think it does. Damage dealt equal damage healed. The expansion also adds a bunch of new PvE missions, several of which will be free to play. And say what you will about Hearthstone, I think it's still a pretty fun game, and remains incredibly popular. The biggest issue, in my opinion, is that it's really hard for new players to unlock enough cards to build the decks they want right away. No word on when the expansion is launching, but it should be pretty soon. Also on the Blizzard front, Doomfist has arrived in the public test realm for Overwatch and is yet another playable character. As a soldier-only player, I likely won't even bother trying Doomfist myself, but I'm glad to see Blizzard continuing to keep the game fresh with all of these free new characters. Blizzard is living up to their promise they made a while ago when they launched the game, that when you bought Overwatch, you get all the maps and characters for free, as well as all the new maps and characters as well. The only thing that'll be for sale is, of course, new cosmetics on occasion, which I think is really great. Up next on the Chinese MMORPG news front, Black Desert Online will be making its way to China through Snail Games soon, according to an interview with Pearl Abyss. The Chinese version would have a unique content though, and instead it will basically be the same game that we have here in the West, except obviously localized in Chinese. I suspect Pearl Abyss became enthusiastic about Chinese launch after they saw how amazingly well Black Desert Online did here in the US and Europe, and it can't be understated, Black Desert is absolutely killing it here in the West. It's one of the most popular MMORPG launches in the West over the last few years, and the numbers keep on climbing. If you look on Steam alone, they have over 20,000 current users over the last few days, and the number has actually been rising steadily. Time will tell whether the game will be a success in China or not though, we'll have to wait for that one. And while I'm still playing Final Fantasy XIV, my brother has been addicted to BDO, so he is on that BDO bandwagon. Also in Chinese MMO industry news, NetDragon, the company that makes Conquer Online and EU Demons Online, bought the parent company of Neopets.com. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the Chinese now own Neopets. It's not exactly big news by itself, but it does continue the trend we've been seeing over the last few years of Chinese gaming companies buying up Western studios. Games like Runescape, Warframe, League of Legends, and Ark Survival Evolved are just a few examples of games bought by Chinese companies over the last few years, and I suspect that trend will continue. Up next is some more traditional MMORPG news. Final Fantasy XIV released patch 4.01 this last week, which added the new 8-man raid content Omega, as well as introduced some balance changes to the game. And while Stormblood only launched a few weeks ago, a good percent of the player base has already completed the main storyline and are itching for new content to complete. Expect more raid content in the near future. The new housing district in Stormblood won't be open right away either, so the players still got plenty of time to save up their guild before that new housing district launches. No word on exactly when it'll happen though. Up next is Secret World Legends released a roadmap for content updates and events that go all the way into 2017 into early 2018 to give their players an idea of what's to come. New elite dungeons were added on July 5th, with another big update launching later this month, which brings players to Transylvania to continue the game's main storyline. Special events will also be coming at the end of July and early August. The entire roadmap is actually available on the official Secret World Legends website, and I really like that developers are communicating with players what to expect going forward. Obviously, it's not all set in stone, and it doesn't include everything, but it gives players an idea of what to expect in the near future, which I think is really nice. I think it's good for that developers communicate with their players what their intentions are, and none of this stuff is set in stone, but it's good that we have an idea of what's to come. Next up, some interesting news about Pokemon Go. Niantic's unbelievably popular Pokemon mobile game has made over $1.2 billion in revenue since launch, but astoundingly, $950 million of that number was from 2016. So the game's revenues are way down, as we're more than halfway into 2017, and the game has only made an additional $250 million, which is still a lot of money, but the hype train has definitely died down. And while I participated in that craze early on, I've long since moved on. I look forward to playing an actual Pokemon mobile game, a more traditional one, which I think we'll get eventually, especially since Nintendo has started embracing mobile. And with gachas and Pokemon, holy crap, they're going to make so much money when that happens. Up next, some news from Warframe. At TennoCon this year, the annual Warframe convention, Digital Extremes announced the Plains of Eidolon expansion, which is a new open-world landscape to the game that players can explore on their own terms. These are outdoor locations with town, inhabitants, quests, and more. Normally, expansions add a lot of content, but it's usually the same kind of content, so it's actually awesome to see Warframe adding such new experiences to the game. Obviously, the expansion will have a ton of other goodies too. Unfortunately, no release date on that just yet, but we'll hear more about this one relatively soon. The next and last bit of news is a fun one from Runescape. Remember that level 999 gate of experience in Runescape we talked about a while ago on the podcast? Some guy hit level 999 and went through it, but never told anybody what was behind the door, and the door remained a mystery until just this last week. Someone else hit level 999 and streamed themselves going through the door, and the 12-year-old mystery has finally been put to rest. But unfortunately, the mystery of the door kind of sucks. You can see in the background, it's literally just leads to an island where there's nothing really there. Oh well, it's still kind of cool that the game had this big secret for 12 plus years. Anyway guys, that's it for MMO News this week. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the podcast. Later guys.